This meeting is now called to order. I'd like to welcome everyone this evening. For roll call, everyone is present. And we'll now take a moment of reflection and respect, please. Thank you. Confirmation of the agenda. Resolution, please, Owen.
That council adopts the agenda for the meeting of June 1st, 2022.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Deputy Mayor Andrews and Councillor Charlton, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Okay, I don't see any hands up. There are no delegations or public meetings. The next item up is adoption of council and committee minutes to approve. Go ahead.
That council approves the minutes, regular virtual meeting of council held on May 18th, 2022.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Oslach and Councillor Barber. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next item is the consent agenda, item 7.1.
That consent item 7.1 of the May 18th, 2022 consent agenda be received for information with actions to be taken as noted.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Chapman and seconded by Councillor Ham. Okay, are there any concerns with the consent agenda this evening or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Now we'll move into action items. The first report is Clerk 2722.
That report, Clerk 2722, entitled Planning Evaluation Report, Application for Consent to Sever number E22 57 Water Street, be received for information, and that the application for consent to sever number E28-22 related to the property known municipally as 57 Water Street be supported in principle with the recommended conditions set out in report Clerk 27-22, and further that the report and Appendix A be forwarded to the Land Division Committee for review and consideration.
Okay, thank you, Owen. Someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Chapman and seconded by Councillor Ham. And I'm not sure, are you going to be taking this one, Andy, or are you going to be Matt?
Mayor French, I think we would pass it off to Matt Alexander from WSB to provide us the overview on this report and the next. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Andy. Welcome, Matt, and I'll turn it over to you just to give us a bit of an overview of this report.
Good evening, members of council. Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me clearly. This item is related to a consent to sever application for 57 Water Street, as noted in the introduction. The proposal is, let me just bring up my notes here. Apologize. The proposal is to create a new lot from an existing residential lot at 57 Water Street. The application would create a new lot on the north side of the property with frontage of 21 meters on Linden Street and an area of approximately 634 square meters. The retained lands would have a frontage of 30 meters on Water Street and an area of 919 square meters and would contain the existing dwelling. Through our review of the application, we found that the property and the proposal conforms with the low density residential designation of the official plan, and that it is generally in compliance with the zoning bylaw. However, we found that it appears that the existing dwelling may not comply with all of the requirements of the zoning bylaw with regard to setbacks on the property. And so we've recommended that council support the application with the note that a minor variance may be required to legalize the existing frontage of the existing dwelling. That's a fairly common condition to have on a consent application involving an existing dwelling. So it shouldn't be, I don't think it should be seen as much of a surprise. And the rest of the conditions that we've recommended are fairly standard, including requirement for a plan of survey, the clearance of any municipal property taxes, and a few other things that are fairly standard. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Are there any questions for Matt from council? Councillor Oslach, go ahead.
Yes, Your Worship, to Matt. The setback of the existing building, was it an old building built, 50 years ago or something, when these bylaws were not in effect? The setbacks?
Through you, Chair, I'm not sure of the date of the building, but it appears to be a legally non-complying dwelling. I can, if I can share my screen, I can show you what it looks like on the property if it's a concern.
Please do.
Do you want to see that, Councillor Oslach?
Yes.
Okay. If you don't mind, Matt.
Yes, I think it needs to, or you know what, it could be just changed to the application form if that's easier. Probably not. If you can make me a presenter, I can share my screen.
You should be a presenter now, Matt.
Excellent, thank you. Let's see what it's sharing. Okay, so do you see the drawing for 57 Water Street? Oh, I think it's there now.
Yes.
So I'll zoom in a little bit. So this is the outline of the lot. North is to the left in this, and you can see that the existing dwelling in this general area, 1.5-story dwelling, is located quite close to their proposed property line for the severance. Clearly, they would want to create a severed lot that could be built upon, so that's why the size is the size that it is. And because it's a corner lot, the existing dwelling still has a fairly substantial front yard and side yard. And so our review, we didn't see that the reduced setback from the proposed lot was entirely unacceptable. If the new lot is built in accordance with the existing zoning requirements, then there should be a fairly reasonable separation between the buildings. In terms of process, if the county approves this with the condition that the applicant resolve the non-compliance on the setback, then they would need to go to the Committee of Adjustment or to council for a minor variance or a zoning bylaw amendment to reduce that setback before the consent could be finalized. At this point, our recommendation is that the severance is still in keeping with the general intent of the official plan. We didn't identify any issues of conformity with the official plan, and that the proposed lot seems to meet the requirements of the zoning bylaw. It's just that the existing dwelling wouldn't meet that separation distance, that setback distance from the proposed new lot line. I hope that's clear. Certainly answer any other questions that you have.
Thank you, Matt. It's clear.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Are there any further questions for Matt? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next report is Clerk 28-22.
That report, Clerk 28-22, entitled Planning Evaluation Report, Application for Consent to Sever, number E38-22 and E39-22, 448 Talbot Street East, be received for information, and that the council defer the decision upon the application for consent to sever, number E38-22 and E39-22, until a decision has been made on related official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment applications, and further that council directs staff to notify the Land Division Committee of the deferral.
Okay, thank you, Owen. Somebody to move and someone to second. Councillor Chapman and Deputy Mayor Andrews, and I'll turn it back over to you, Matt.
Thank you very much. So this application is related to 448 Talbot Street East within the town of Aylmer. The property is currently occupied by one single detached dwelling with an attached garage. The property is designated arterial commercial, and it is zoned C3, which is the appropriate commercial zoning for the property. This means that the single detached dwelling is a legal non-conforming use, and that the long-term intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw is that the property would eventually be converted into a commercial use. The two applications for official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment would change the designation of the proposed new lot to be changed to residential, low density residential, and to be rezoned as the low density residential zone. Since those applications have not yet been considered by council and have not been approved, that means that the proposal for the severance is not in conformity with the official plan, and it's not in compliance with the zoning bylaw. In some cases, a consent granting authority will add an amendment to the official plan or zoning bylaw as a condition of consent. However, in my experience, that's not really the best approach to take, because it can take a while sometimes to resolve an official plan amendment, and therefore we're recommending that it be deferred until the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment applications can have a decision on them. In terms of details of the actual application itself, the severed lands would have a frontage of 30 meters on Elk Street and an area of 722 square meters. The retained lands, which include the existing dwelling, would have a frontage of 32.9 meters on Talbot Street East and an area of 1,774 square meters. There is a second consent application that's part of this, which is to establish an easement for the purposes of allowing for sanitary connections to be to cross the proposed new lot. In our review, we found that essentially, if the official plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment are approved, then we did not identify any concerns with relation to conformity or compliance with the zoning bylaw. However, if those applications are not approved, then, as I said, the severance application would not conform and would not comply with the zoning bylaw. And if you like, I can share my screen and show the sketch for this severance as well. Might be helpful. I would just need to be made a presenter again. Thank you very much. So here is the location map for this application. You can see it has dual frontage on Talbot Street East, as well as on, sorry, I said it earlier, and I can't read it.
It's
Elk Street. Sorry. And you can see from the image that there is the existing dwelling in approximately the center of the property. Now, switch to the next page. You can see it's just identifying the property lines there. And I'm going to scroll through to where they show the severance division. I'm going to rotate this so it's easier to see. Oops. And so you can see that Talbot Street is on the right side, Elk Street's on the left, and they're proposing to sever this parcel of approximately 722 square meters from the rear of the existing dwelling, and the proposal is to add a residence there. The proposal does not indicate any changes to the retained parcel, so at this time there's no proposal to change the existing use or replace the building. But they would, I believe, intend to build a house or sell the vacant lot on that would be created by the severance. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Are there any questions for Matt? I don't see any hands up, so all those in favor? And that's carried. And thank you so much, Matt.
Thank you very much.
The next report is REC 01-22.
That report Recreation 01-22 entitled Parks and Recreation Program Update be received as information.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Chapman and Councillor Ham. And I'll turn this over to Tom, if you would like to give us a bit more information on your report.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'll give you a brief executive summary of the report. The object of the report is to give council sort of a high-level overview of the Parks and Recreation Department, kind of more like just a bit of a lay of the land. Staff saw the opportunity to brief council that all activities were moving forward and our facilities are seeing the same type of use pre-COVID-19, which is that's fabulous to see. One of the topics that I didn't put in the report, Your Worship, was staff recruitment. Staff recruitment's been challenging, and it's not unique to the town at all, and it appears to be very widespread. Staff and senior administration have looked at the options for recruitment. Human Resources Department has been actively looking for recruitment candidates. So in that vein as well, Your Worship, some areas have not had the attention and detail that they've seen previously. And some of those contributing factors were lack of staffing, some environmental conditions as well. And I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to brief council, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Are there any questions for Tom concerning this report? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. And thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Your Worship. Have a good night, council. Thank you.
The next report is OPNS 07-22.
That report OPNS 07-22 entitled Marketing License Award LAS Service Line Warranties of Canada Incorporated be received, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to enter into an agreement with Service Line Warranties of Canada Incorporated.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second, please. Deputy Mayor Andrews, and seconded by Councillor Charlton. And I will turn this over to Christian. Welcome, Christian.
Hi, Thank you, Mayor French, and through you to members of council. So I'll summarize it. We have an opportunity available for Elmer landowners to obtain a low-cost program, which will warranty service breaks on the private portion of the water and sanitary service connections. The agreement will allow SLWC, the company, to solicit for customers in the town of Elmer and use our logo as a sign that we verify the validity of the program. Any advertising material used in Elmer will be approved by staff before distribution. So anything with our logo we'll have eyes on first. So as a refresher to residents and members of council, homeowners are responsible for the services that transition from the municipal system onto their private property. In the past, staff have received calls for service for plugged sanitary sewer laterals, broken or frozen water services on private property. And where possible, the staff have helped facilitate matching landowners and contractors to help fix the issue. But by entering this proposed agreement with SLWC, residents could purchase warranty coverage for emergency repairs to residential water service lines, sewer laterals, and interior plumbing. There's no obligation to join the service, and they're free to join and quit at their convenience. However, the benefit to joining the SLWC coverage speaks for itself. They currently have over 1,000 partners, municipal partners, serve over 4.5 million customers, hold over 7.6 million service contracts. And in the past 3 years alone, they've helped complete 1.7 million repairs across municipalities and saved customers $192 million. It is important to note that the SLWC uses local contractors who are familiar with the infrastructure in the event of a service repair. So again, in conclusion, service line repairs are unpredictable and often costly. This service will provide residents with the chance to have the peace of mind regarding their home. And at the very least, this report and advertising will serve as a helpful reminder to Elmer homeowners to check their homeowner policy and find out what coverage they currently have for their water, sewer, and internal plumbing, and speak with their insurer to check what their options are. So if there's any questions, I can help answer them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Christian. I see your hand up there, Councillor Oslach. Go ahead.
Yes, Your Worship. This is great for the residents of Elmer. Basically, how do you apply? You go to town hall to apply for the permit or the application?
Go ahead, Christian.
Yeah, through you, Mayor French, to Councillor Oslach. So basically, we shouldn't really have to do much work. The only thing we'll be doing at the town and as staff is just fielding questions from residents, probably asking if it's legitimate. And they will go through the local service provider through this company. So we won't be handing out applications, nothing like that. The only thing we'll be helping with is the advertising and the awareness for the new warranties. So, yeah.
So do we sign up with the town or the company?
We sign up the town through the company to allow them to come in and start advertising. They won't start advertising in the town until we give them permission to do so. We enter an agreement with them for 3 years. They can use our logo, they can advertise to residents, and they can have customers, and then we endorse it.
So basically, we work with the company, with local contractors. Thank you.
Yeah, are there any further questions for Christian? Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, just a little further on Christian's report. I think he gave the details which are really in favor of the homeowner. As you know, when you put a municipal logo on something, it has a value to it. And this is a LAS company authorized by AMO that runs at a satisfaction level of like 97%. It's not an insurance. There's no pre-existing condition. If you think you have a problem with your service lateral that you're going to need fixed in like a month, you can sign up. You can cancel the following month. So through us providing a municipal endorsement to the company, we leverage our logo, if you will, for the benefit of our residents at no cost to us. And as Christian said, there's no obligation for anyone to sign up. So I really think it's probably in the best interest of our ratepayers to take advantage of this program.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Are there any further comments or questions concerning this report? Councillor Oslach?
Yes, Your Worship, further to my question, basically, does this apply to indoor plumbing, hole plumbing? If you know, basically, I'm in a house with 150 years old. If my plumbing goes on the crap next tomorrow, I can apply for that, right?
Go ahead, Rob.
Sure, and maybe Christian can answer this as well, because I know we sat in on this together. There's a number of options you can take, like street line to building, or you can take street line to building and also interior plumbing. That you can sign up for any one of those. So I believe I got that correct, did I not, Christian?
Yes, so just to kind of confirm what you're saying, so you can 3 different coverages that they offer: sewer service line, water service line, and then in-home plumbing. And you can choose between those 3 which ones you'd like to apply for and get coverage for. But
Okay, thank you, Christian. Does that answer your question, Councillor Oslach?
Yes.
Okay. Any further questions or comments for Christian? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next item up is report OPNS 08-22.
That report operations 08-22 entitled 2022 hard surface maintenance program be received for information, and that the 2022 hard surface maintenance work be awarded to Duncor Enterprises Incorporated, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to enter into agreement with Duncor Enterprises Incorporated of Barrie, Ontario, for the purpose of completing the work.
Okay, thank you, Owen. Someone to move and someone to second. Deputy Mayor Andrews and Councillor Charlton. And I'll turn this back over to you, Christian, if you'd like to give us a brief overview.
sure, thank you. And through you, Mayor French, should look familiar to residents and councillors. We've been doing this program pretty religiously for at least the past 3 to 4 years, and then we've done it multiple times in the last 10 years. I provided that should also kind of highlight the project we've done in previous years. So now participate in joint procurement opportunities with other area municipalities when believed to be prudent to do so. So joint procurement enables us to access pricing obtained by bigger municipalities or counties or governments, so we can leverage, the amount of quantities that they buy. And in this case, surface maintenance and microsurfacing specifically, good example of procurement strategy. If we were to go out to tender for this town of Aylmer on our own, the price per square meter would be a lot higher rather than jumping on the county. So staff would recommend that the town participate in this purchasing cooperative with the county again this year. Kind of participated in this program in the past, and like I said, you can see through the map of the areas that we've done. Last year we were in the Melanie area, and this year, as the map shows, we're doing lots of straight runs kind of in the center of town and a little bit over to the southwest. So the benefits of microsurfacing are perfect for a town like Aylmer. Surfacing has very little kickoff of aggregate. That is typical with other application, and it can extend the lifespan of a road, 5 to 7 years. The 2022 budget for hard surface maintenance program has been set at 120,000, I should say. Not all this money is going to be allocated to undertake microsurfacing. Staff would recommend that approximately 110,000 of this budget be used for program specifically, and the remainder of the budget would be set aside to prepare the roads for the surface treatment and undertake ongoing regular maintenance activities. Staff has decided on the road section based on needs, current state, and future reconstructions. So if anybody has any questions or can help with anything.
Okay, we did have some difficulty, Christian, hearing you. I was okay, but several councillors have mentioned they couldn't hear you. So Rob has offered that he will jump in if they have any questions as well. So he'll help you out with the questions. So does council have any questions for either Rob or Christian? I think this is pretty straightforward, as you explained, Christian, and we've been doing this, for a while now, and it seems to work well. And it's great when we can work with other municipalities and it's, and get those economies. So if there aren't any questions or comments, all those in favor? And that's carried. And thank you, Christian. The next report is CAO 40-22.
That report CAO 40-22 entitled Delegations, Records, and Information Administration be received for information, and that Elmer directs staff to present the proposed bylaw for adoption.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Chapman and Councillor Ham, and I'll turn this over to Andy.
Thank you, Mayor French. As part of I guess, an introduction to this report, I just want to talk a bit about the importance of accountability and transparency. Right now, it's never been more important for municipal government. Internationally, research led by Oxford University has indicated that trust in government institutions has significantly eroded in North America. This is compared to Europe, where they've been able to maintain a fairly high level of trust in all levels of government. The prevailing thought is that misinformation campaigns have resulted in a significant loss of social capital, and that's impacted all levels of government in all areas of our country. Loss of trust creates a real problem, as trust has been directly tied to how resilient a community is. So the best tool we have to address this loss of trust is to continue to actively create a culture of openness and sharing with our community. This report seeks to establish the town clerk as the leader of transparency and accountability for the town. To preface this report, the town doesn't have a lot of freedom of information requests. Part of the reason why for the low request number is we currently proactively release a lot of information through informal processes. So this is a best practice that the City of Ottawa utilizes. So our numbers are so low because usually when people come to us, we try to find the information and give it to them quickly. It is, however, important to establish one person responsible outside of the chain of command to meet the obligations around accountability and transparency and information release. This, in effect, creates an impartial individual whose first obligation is to the public to ensure these matters. So the clerk is ideally situated for that role because they already do that with the municipal election every 4 years, where they're not really reporting to council, they're not really reporting to staff, they're just undertaking the work for the public. This isn't an issue in the town currently. Council, myself, and staff place the highest value on accountability and transparency. Councils and staff can, however, change, so it's important to avoid a potential where a CAO or council could interfere with appropriate releases. This sometimes occurs when a municipality wishes to avoid releasing something potentially embarrassing, but the public is still entitled to know that information. Given the level of specialization and emerging decisions from the Information and Privacy Commissioner, it's also valuable to rely upon the expertise of clerk and records staff to address this area. And in the absence of council directing, they themselves assume the role of records head. And this structure can result in delays in processing times. So staff are recommending the support of the proposed delegation as it supports our corporate culture of openness and transparency and continuous ongoing improvement. And with that, I'll try to answer any questions council might have.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Are there any questions for Andy concerning this report? I don't see any hands up. Excellent report, Andy. With no questions or comments, all those in favor? And that's carried. The next report is CAO 41-22.
That report CAO 41-22 entitled Privacy Breach Protocol be received for information, and that council approve the proposed privacy breach protocol for the town of Elmer.
Okay, thank you, Owen. Someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Chapman and Councillor Oslach. And I'll turn this back over to you, Andy.
Thank you, Mayor French. So this report seeks to implement a best practice from the Information and Privacy Commission of Ontario. Oftentimes, municipalities introduce privacy breach protocols as a result of a recommendation arising out of an IPC breach report. So staff are being proactive in producing the protocol prior to any breaches. There are many different formats of privacy breach protocols. My preference for this format is that it's brief and it avoids a lot of jargon. So it makes it a valuable reference tool for staff in both training and when we're in the midst of a breach. This protocol is largely based on one that I developed in 2018. There, however, haven't been a lot of substantive changes in breach response since that time. Although we often think of cyber incidences as the largest potential for breaches, my anecdotal experience usually suggests otherwise. In a small community like ours, my main concern is around things like gossip, I guess you would term them. For instance, I was in another municipality where a resident caused a scene in an arena and had to be escorted out by police. The front counter staff went home and relayed this to other people. And a week later, that individual was teased about it by somebody else who had heard it through the grapevine. So we need to ensure that staff are trained and are aware that those types of leaks cannot happen, and we have to respect personal privacy that comes into our possession. Other common breaches are sending a letter or an email to the wrong address, or having the wrong security on an internal electronic folder that allows a staff to access information that they don't need for the performance of their duties. So it's important to note that even internally, there can be breaches that we need to address in a manner that protects the information in our possession. Staff don't generally just have access to all the information. This report links somewhat to the previous one and that reinforces the leadership role of the clerk to oversee breach responses, and perhaps the most importantly, to ensure that notification occurs quickly to those impacted in all circumstances, except when we have a request from law enforcement to delay notification because it would impact an ongoing investigation. I particularly like the requirement to meet and review breach responses after incidences to ensure that we learn from our mistakes and continue to improve. The level and complexity of all the moving parts of municipal government really mean that you need to review everything continually and learn from your mistakes. Again, to highlight, this report isn't in response to any incident in Aylmer. It's just to ensure that we have a best practice in place. And with that, I'll try to answer any questions council might have.
Thank you, Andy. Are there any questions for Andy? Go ahead, Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Your Worship. To Andy, do either of these new policies have any significant impact on the budget?
Through you, Mayor French, that's a great question, Councillor Barber. No, they don't have any impact on the budget. As we continue to look at, proactively look at all our processes and all how we handle information, there's always a potential that we'll identify some area that could have budget impacts, but these at face value do not.
Go ahead, Councillor Barber.
Just to follow that up, if I may, Your Worship, we're not going to eventually end up with a person specifically designated to handle these issues. It'll be existing staff, expansion of their responsibilities.
Through you, Mayor French. Yes, that's correct. It's often dealt with internally kind of now. So this really formalizes it. I know a way of explaining it is that if we had a breach last week, Josh Brick, he's great. He'd know exactly what to do with it. But this is more about the training and education of all our staff because we need to bring everybody up to speed. And that's really an ongoing effort and an ongoing continuous improvement. But we don't need anybody further for that.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions or comments about this report? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next report is CAO 39-22.
That report, CAO 39-22, respecting payments in lieu calculations be received for information, and that the Director of Financial Services / Treasurer be directed to work with the county to ensure the payment of the town of Elmer's taxes, and that Elmer Council express their appreciation to Elgin County staff for undertaking the review of historical issues around rates paid by lower municipalities, and that Elmer Council circulate a copy of this report to Elgin County and respectfully request that the county publicly release details upon amounts owing from all lower tier municipalities, including any new or historical, formal and informal, to accept lesser amounts or provide taxation write-offs.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Ham and Deputy Mayor Andrews, and I'll turn this back over to you, Andy.
Thank you, Mayor French. This report addresses a historic error in payments in lieu calculations by Elmer. Elmer has been informed that this was a county-wide review and that we represent a very small portion of the overall amount. Staff want to understand the scope of this upon other Elgin County municipalities to better assess if the town should undertake advocacy efforts to ensure that equitable and fair treatment to our taxpayers has occurred dating back to 2009. Pill rates are directly established via legislation, regulations, or ministerial orders. So there is little to no discretion in how these rates are applied. From an access to information perspective, the information requested of Elgin County is reasonable, and it represents what we or the public would anticipate to receive through a freedom of information process. We do have an indication that the county does intend to undertake a public release, but we do want to highlight the level of detail that the town desires to enable us to undertake our review of the fair and equitable treatment of Elmer taxpayers. And I'll stop there, as I want to avoid any speculation on the county's review. We just have Elmer's information, and myself and staff will answer your questions. But I also should express our appreciation for Elgin County undertaking this work. That I think this was really good that they identified these errors and made lower tier municipalities aware of this.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Are there any questions or comments concerning this report? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next report is Clerk 24-22.
That report, Clerk 24-22, entitled Award RFQ Audiovisual Services Council Chambers be received for information, and that council award the RFQ Audiovisual Services project works as outlined in the report, Clerk 24-22, to Horizon Solutions in the amount of $19,593. And further, that council authorizes the mayor and clerk to execute the necessary contract agreement to facilitate the project works.
Okay, thank you, Owen. Someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Charlton and Councillor Chapman. And Andy, you're taking this report and you're going to give us a brief overview.
Yeah, happy to fill in for Josh on this one. Thank you, Mayor French. So this report is to approve the RFQ for technical setup services for the new council chambers to Horizon Solutions. This was one of 2 RFQ submissions received and was the lowest at just under $20,000. Funding will be utilized from our remaining COVID-19 recovery funds from 2021, so there's no budgetary impact. I'll have to defer to Owen on any answers of technical questions. I do, however, want to take the opportunity to express my thanks to Josh, Tyler, and Owen on this project. Certainly, there will be further opportunities to provide kudos when we have the official opening of council chambers, but I really think this is an example of outstanding project management by staff. And the time, so many other municipalities at this time were seeing cost overruns or delays for these types of projects. And it's really amazing to see how terrific the council chambers and offices look and how cost effective this project was done. And certainly with the utilization of the modernization funds grants. So with that, I'll try to answer council's questions.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Are there any questions? Councillor Oslach?
Yes, your worship, to Andy. Basically, we're going to use all the existing equipment because the existing equipment was purchased, it's fairly new, I understand.
I'll have to defer to Owen.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
through-
Owen.
Yeah, through Mayor French, we will be reusing all the existing microphones. They were purchased in 2019 and all the contractors agreed that they could be reused for the room. We will be replacing the central audio processing unit with a newer digital model, which will work better with our hybrid meetings. But all the microphones will be reused.
Further that, the TriCaster will be reused?
So we have a new piece of equipment coming in, which will replace the TriCaster and the audio processing unit. It's a single piece of technology.
Okay.
And yeah, so they will be replaced.
The camera belongs to Eastlink. Did you know
That's
that?
correct.
Yeah.
Yep, and it's being reused as well, but it doesn't work.
My technicians, basically, who's going to run this during council meetings? I have two people that run this previously.
Through the mayor, the room will now be set up for the deputy clerk to take minutes and also administer the audiovisual system for the room.
Okay, so no, you don't no longer need my technicians, correct?
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Okay, are there any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Next item up, new business and matters of urgency. Okay, I don't see any hands up for that. Reading of bylaws and proceedings thereon for 3 readings.
That council approves and gives 3 readings to bylaw 18-22, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor, clerk, and chief administrative officer to execute the transfer payment agreements for the ICIP Green Infrastructure Funding 2021 in the amount of $3,666,133.35. Bylaw 19-22 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 37-17 being the Town of Elmer traffic and parking bylaw. Bylaw 20-22 being a bylaw to authorize the signing of a development agreement between 3248732 Canada Incorporated, Elgin Innovation Center, and the Corporation of the Town of Elmer for the developments of lands located at 516 John Street North in the Town of Elmer. And bylaw 21-22 being a bylaw to delegate powers and duties of council to the town clerk for the purposes of the Freedom of Information and Privacy Protection Act 1990 as amended.
Okay, thank you. I want someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Charlton and Councillor Chapman, are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Are there any inquiries by members? Okay, I don't see any hands up for that. Statements and committee reports. Go ahead, Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Your Worship. Several council meetings ago, council received a report from the Elgin Primary Water System suggesting a review and perhaps the implementation of a new structure. Our council felt that if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and took the decision, made the decision to stay where we are and accept the limitations of a 20-year-old provincial agreement. I was not able to attend that particular meeting as I was called to help a friend, and I truly support the position that council took at that particular time. As a board member, you're often put into the walking that picket fence where you have to protect the interest of the board that you're representing. It appears that other member municipalities within Elgin County also were leery of entering into another form of structure. On the other side, Huron, the Huron board, will be pursuing the consideration of some other type of structure. It'll be interesting to see whether that mirrors what we have now and just into another format or not. But I want to thank the members of council for holding course and working with what we have that's served the people well for more than 20 years. Thank you.
And thank you for that, Councillor Barber. Are there any further statements or committee reports this evening? Okay, seeing none. Report of mayor, I don't have a report this evening. Notice of motion, I don't believe there is one. So resolution for meeting closed to the public.
That council move into a meeting closed to the public at 7:51 p.m. to discuss the following matters. Director of Legislative and Corporate Services Report Clerk 25-22, Labor Relations and Negotiations, Manager of Planning and Development. Recruitment. Director of Legislative and Corporate Services Report Clerk 26-22, Litigation / potential litigation, Waste Discharge Bylaw. Consideration of these reports is closed to the public pursuant to Section 239 to D and E of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, as the subject matter pertains to labor relations or employee negotiations and litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board.
Okay, thank you. And when someone to move and someone to second. Deputy Mayor Andrews and Councillor Charlton, are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you.